Secretary. Jane Austen in Pride and Prejudice has proven to be an immaculate writer, as demonstrated by Diana Francis and Susan Needler, along with Austen's use of feminism, the blinding effect of Pride and Prejudice, and the impact of social classes. This is my author, Jane Austen. On the right is a picture of what she looks like. She is known for her comedy and self-awareness and her realistic details in her plots. And she is also known for the romantic relations of her stories, such as Pride and Prejudice. And all of these are made up of her literary style of a combination of mockery, irony, and speech and direct of realism. Some key ideas from my book Pride and Prejudice is feminism and women deserve independence and voice. The first quote I have is, "The business of her life was to get her daughters married." This quote shows how few options women had back then. Marriage was pretty much their only way to be secure and respected in society. From a feminist viewpoint, it points out how women's independence was limited because their future was tied to the man they married. My second quote I have for this key idea is, "Sensible, so much ease with such perfect good breeding." This quote shows how much people expected women to act a certain way, always polite, graceful, and perfectly behaved. From a feminist point of view, that kind of pressure is really limiting because it cares more about how women look on the outside than who they are on the inside. My second key idea is that Pride and Prejudice can blind us. My first quote for this idea is, he is the most disagreeable, horrible man, not worth pleasing, so high and so conceited that there was no enduring him." This quote shows how quick Elizabeth is to judge Darcy based on her first impression of him. Because he comes across as proud and distant, she immediately thinks he's unpleasant and not worth getting to know. Her own pride and dislike blind her from seeing that there's more to him beneath the surface. It's a good example of how her pride and prejudice can make us jump to conclusions and miss what someone is really like. My second quote is, "I could easily forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine." This quote shows how pride can really mess with how we see people. Elizabeth says she might have let Darcy's pride slide if he hadn't bruised her own ego first, but because she feels hurt, she can't look past that and see the good in him. It's a great example of how when our feelings get involved, Pride and Prejudice can totally blind us from understanding someone properly. My third key idea is the impact of social class. My first quote for this idea is, "Poor Eliza, only to be tolerable." This quote shows how people were judged not by their looks or personality, but also by their social status. When Darcy calls Elizabeth only tolerable, it's not just about her appearance. It's also because she comes from a lower social class. His comment shows how class affects the way people are seen and treated, and how those from lesser families were often looked down on, no matter how smart or kind they were. The second quote I have for this key idea is, "If I could see one of my daughters happily settled at Netherfield and all the others equally married, I shall have nothing to wish for." This quote shows how much pressure there was on women to marry, well, especially into wealth and higher social standing. Miss Bennet isn't just wishing for her daughters to be happy, she's focused on them being happily settled, meaning married to rich, respectable men like Mr. Bingley and Netherfield. It shows how important social class was at the time. Marrying into a higher class was one of the only ways a woman could improve her life and secure her future. For families like the Bennets, this kind of marriage was everything. Now we're on to symbols, and my first symbol is Darcy's letters. And my first quote is, "Till this moment, I never knew myself." This quote shows just how much of an impact Darcy's letter has on Elizabeth. After reading it, she realizes that she's been wrong about him and about herself. She starts to see how her own pride and prejudice shaped her opinions and let the letter force her to reflect and grow, making it a turning point in the story. It shows that Darcy's letter isn't just an explanation, it helps Elizabeth understand the truth and to begin to change how she sees the world and herself. My second symbol is clothing and dresses. And the quote for this one is, "A single man of large fortune, 4,000 or 5,000 a year, what a fine thing for our girls." This quote shows how important money and status were when it came to marriage. A man with 4,000 or 5,000 a year was basically considered the dream, and families like the Bennets were eager to marry their daughters off to someone rich. Because of that, things like clothing and appearance really mattered. The way a woman dressed helped show off her social standing, or at least made her look like she belonged in a higher one. It was all part of making a good impression and catching the eye of the right kind of man. My next symbol is marriage. And the quote for this one is, "She has no money, no connections, nothing that can tempt him. She is lost forever." This quote shows just how much a woman's future depended on marriage in Austen's time. If a woman didn't have money or family connections, like Elizabeth in this moment, people assumed she had nothing to offer and no chance of catching a wealthy husband. My last symbol is gender roles. And the quote for this is, "It is a truth universal acknowledged, the entitlement of the estate to Mr. Collins." This quote really shows how unfair things were for women back then. Mr. Bennet has 5 daughters, but because they're all girls, none of them can inherit the house or land. Instead, everything goes to Mr. Collins just because he's a man, even though he's barely part of the family. It makes you realize how little control women had over their own futures and how much they had to depend on marriage to get any kind of stability in life. My secondary sources. In the quote, feminists have criticized Austen's portrayal of women in Pride and Prejudice as being too passive. None of the women ever take control of their lives. Diana Francis is referring to the fact that majority of the novel seems to be based upon traditional gender roles and how the women never gain enough confidence to speak up, which makes modern feminists angry. Although this is true and Austen makes her characters live in their time period, she has no problems showing the intelligence of her characters and their smart wit. In the quote, "Neither single or married woman can be powerful, useful, or happy," leads to a deadlier myth. Susan Needler is mentioning the fact that women can't be happy or fulfilled unless they're married. As this may be the case for some women during the time period of this novel, many women can be happy and successful without needing to depend on others, whether that be male or female. In conclusion, the major takeaways and lessons brought by the novel Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen is that first impressions can be misleading. As you start the novel, it seems to have a very standard gender role theme, but as you move forward throughout the plot, you get to see the characters' personalities more and more, and can see how Austen has crafted her masterpiece by adding in some wit and intelligence as defiance. It's through the blend of clever dialogue and character development that Austen transforms a story about marriage into something much deeper, a reflection on pride and judgment.